The human soldiers stunned the alien Empress. No one expected this part. 5. The shift. 3 days passed. Do-hun spent most of them in the healing room, watching his body slowly repair itself. The Korath medical technology was amazing. Wounds that would have taken months to heal on Earth closed in hours. Broken bones mended like they had never been broken. Even the scars began to fade. But the Korath healers could not fix everything. Some things went deeper than flesh and bone. Some things stayed with a person forever. During those 3 days, Do-hun had one visitor. Minho came once, escorted by guards, but allowed to see his sergeant for a few minutes. They did not say much. There was not much to say. But Minho looked at Do-hun with something like awe in his eyes. "You actually did it," Minho said. "You beat that thing." "I got lucky," Do-hun replied. "No," Minho said. "You did not." On the 4th day, the guards came for Do-hun. They did not put him in chains this time. They simply walked beside him, leading him through the winding corridors of the Imperial Palace. The palace was beautiful. Do-hun could admit that now, without the fear of immediate death clouding his vision. Every wall was covered with art paintings, sculptures, tapestries that seemed to move. Windows showed views of a purple sky and distant mountains. Gardens grew in impossible places, flowers blooming in colors that did not exist on Earth. The Korath had built something magnificent, something that would last for centuries. Do-hun wondered what humans might build, given 1,000 years of peace. The guards led him to a room he had not seen before. It was small compared to the throne room, only about the size of a basketball court. A round table sat in the center, surrounded by chairs. Windows lined one wall, showing the same purple sky. Empress Valera was already there. She sat alone at the table, wearing simple clothes instead of her royal robes. Without the crown and the ceremony, she looked almost normal. Still alien, still powerful, but somehow more real. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her. Do-hun sat. The guards left, closing the door behind them. He was alone with the Empress of an empire that controlled thousands of worlds. The same Empress who had ordered him to fight to the death just days ago. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "I have been thinking," Valera said finally. "Thinking about what you said. About humans. About what makes your species different." Do-hun waited. 300 years, she continued. "I have ruled for 300 years. I have seen countless species rise and fall. I have watched empires crumble and civilizations burn. I thought I had seen everything. I thought I understood everything." She looked at him with those silver eyes. "But I did not understand you. I did not understand humans." Do-hun still said nothing. He sensed that she needed to speak, needed to work through something in her own mind. "When I took the throne, the Korath Empire was already ancient," Valera said. "We had conquered half the galaxy. We were feared by all. But we were also dying. Slowly, quietly, dying from the inside." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the purple sky. "We had forgotten what it meant to struggle, what it meant to fight for survival. Everything was given to us. Everything was easy. We became soft, lazy, arrogant. We thought we were the greatest species in the galaxy, but we had stopped growing, stopped changing, stopped becoming more than we were." She turned back to face him. "When I watched you fight my champion, I saw something I had not seen in centuries. I saw someone who refused to accept their limits. Someone who became stronger because they had to, not because it was easy. Someone who looked at the impossible and said, 'No.'" Do-hun finally spoke. "Why are you telling me this?" Valera smiled. It was a strange smile, sad and hopeful at the same time. "Because I have made a decision," she said. "One that will change the course of my empire. One that my nobles will hate. One that might even lead to my death. She walked back to the table and sat down. You and your crew will go free. Completely free. Your ship will be repaired and returned to you. You will be given safe passage to the border of human space. Dohan's heart stopped. He had hoped for this. He had argued for this. But hearing it actually happen was something else entirely. Why? He asked. Because you were right, Valera said simply. The Korath have spent too long being conquerors. We have destroyed too many species, enslaved too many worlds. We have made enemies of everyone we have met. She leaned forward. But you showed me another way. You could have hated me. You could have threatened revenge. Instead, you offered something else. You offered the possibility of, not friendship, exactly, but perhaps understanding, perhaps respect. Dohan thought about his crew, about Hannah, who had joined the military to see the stars, about Taiho, who just wanted to build things and fix things, about Minho, who had dedicated his life to saving others. None of them had asked for this. None of them deserved to die in some alien arena for entertainment. What happens now? He asked. Now, I let you go, Valera said. And I watch. I watch what humans do with the gift I have given them. I watch whether they are truly as remarkable as you have shown me, or whether you are simply one exceptional individual in a sea of ordinary creatures. She stood. And perhaps, in time, I will send ambassadors to Earth. Perhaps we will talk instead of fight. Perhaps we will learn from each other instead of trying to destroy each other. Dohan stood as well. That would be unexpected, he said carefully. Valera laughed. It was a real laugh, full of genuine amusement. Yes, it would. My nobles will think I have gone mad. Some of them might try to remove me from the throne. Will you be okay? Dohan asked. He was not sure why he cared. This was the creature who had almost killed him and his crew. But somehow, in this moment, she seemed less like a monster and more like a person trying to do the right thing. I have survived 300 years of plots and schemes, Valera said. I will survive a few more. She walked to the door and opened it. Guards waited outside, along with Dohan's crew. They were all there: Hannah, Taiho, Minho, Sunwoo, and the others. They looked confused but unharmed. When they saw Dohan, relief flooded their faces. Hannah actually ran forward and hugged him, crying. Sergeant, she said. We thought, we did not know what. It is okay, Dohan said, patting her back. We are going home. He looked at Valera, who watched the reunion with an unreadable expression. Thank you, he said. The words felt strange. Thanking the person who had captured them, imprisoned them, almost killed them. But it was also true. She was giving them their lives back. Valera nodded once. Go home, Sergeant Dohan, she said. Tell your people about the Korath. Tell them we are not just destroyers. Tell them that even ancient empires can learn new things. She paused, and something flickered in her silver eyes. Tell them that one human soldier stunned the alien Empress. And that perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy will never be the same because of it. Dohan led his crew out of the palace, through the corridors, and into a waiting transport ship. He watched through the window as the Korath homeworld grew smaller behind them. Purple clouds, distant mountains, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Hannah sat next to him, still trembling slightly. Sergeant, she said quietly. What happened in there? Why did she let us go? Dohan thought about everything. The fight, the conversation, the Empress's strange sadness. I think, he said slowly, I reminded her of something she had forgotten. What? He looked out at the stars spreading before them. Countless suns. Countless worlds. A galaxy full of possibilities. Hope, he said. I reminded her of hope. The ship jumped to hyperspace, and the stars stretched into lines of light. They were going home. And behind them, in a palace on a purple world, an empress sat alone and thought about the future. A future that suddenly seemed much more interesting than the past. The galaxy was about to change, and it had all started with one human soldier who refused to give up. The human soldier stunned the alien empress. No one expected this part. 4. The revelation dawn woke to the sound of water. He opened his eyes slowly, painfully. Everything hurt. His body felt like it had been run over by a transport ship. Twice, he was lying on something soft. Not sand, not stone. Something that felt almost like a bed. The ceiling above him was white and curved, glowing with gentle light. Medical equipment floated nearby, making soft, beeping sounds. He was in some kind of healing room. Why was he in a healing room? He was a prisoner. He should be in a cell. Or dead. He tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness hit him and he fell back. His body was wrapped in bandages. He could feel something cold on his skin, some kind of healing gel, maybe. Do not move too quickly, a voice said. Your body is still recovering. Dawan turned his head. Standing beside his bed was a Korath, but not like any he had seen before. This one was smaller, almost human-sized. Its skin was pale blue, and it wore simple white clothing. A healer, probably. Where am I? Dawan asked. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. You are in the Imperial Medical Wing, the healer said. The Empress ordered that you receive the best care available. Dawan blinked. That did not make sense. He was a prisoner. He was supposed to be dead. Why would the Empress heal him? Before he could ask more questions, the door to the room opened. Guards walked in, first 4 of them, heavily armed. Then came Empress Valera herself. She looked different without the throne behind her. Still tall, still powerful, still frightening. But there was something else in her silver eyes now. Something that had not been there before. Curiosity. Real curiosity. She walked to the side of his bed and looked down at him. The healer quickly bowed and left the room. The guards stayed, but kept their distance. You lived, Valera said. Sorry to disappoint, Dawan replied. He probably should not have said that. He was in no position to be sarcastic. But he was tired, hurt, and honestly did not care anymore. He had won the fight. Whatever happened next, at least his crew would survive. Valera's mouth twitched. It might have been almost a smile. You killed my champion, she continued. A warrior who had never been defeated. A warrior who had killed over 1,000 enemies in the arena. And you, a small human with no weapons, no armor, and barely any strength. You killed him with your bare hands. Dawan said nothing. He did not know what she wanted him to say. How? She asked. The word was simple, but the weight behind it was enormous. How did you do it? Dawan thought about the question. He thought about the fight, the pain, the fear, the moments when he wanted to give up. He thought about his crew watching from above. He thought about what it meant to be human. Because I had to, he said finally. Valera's eyes narrowed. That is not an answer. It is the only answer, Dawan said. He pushed himself up, ignoring the pain, until he was sitting on the edge of the bed. The guards tensed, but Valera raised a hand to stop them. Your champion was stronger than me, Dawan continued. Faster than me. Tougher than me. In every way that matters in a fight, he was better. If we had fought 100 times, he would have won 99 of them. Then how did you win this one? Valera asked. Dawan looked at her. Looked directly into her silver eyes. Because humans do not give up. Because we do not accept the impossible. Because when someone tells us we cannot do something, we find a way to do it anyway. He paused to catch his breath. Speaking was hard. Everything was hard. Your champion expected me to die, he said. Everyone in that room expected me to die. Maybe even I expected me to die. But expecting is not the same as accepting. I did not accept death. I refused it. And that refusal, that stubbornness, that is what makes humans dangerous. The room was silent. Valera stood motionless, studying him like he was a puzzle she could not solve. You were willing to die for your crew, she said slowly. You were willing to suffer and bleed and break, just for them. Yes. Why? Dahan almost laughed. Because they are my people. Because protecting them is my job. Because that is what soldiers do. What leaders do. What humans do. He stood up from the bed. His legs shook. His wounds screamed. But he stood anyway. He would not have this conversation lying down. You have ruled for 300 years, he said. You have conquered thousands of worlds. You have destroyed civilizations that refuse to bow. You think you understand power. You think you understand strength. His voice grew stronger. The pain faded to background noise. He had something to say, and he was going to say it. But you do not understand humans. You look at us and see small, weak creatures from a small, weak world. You see prey. You see slaves. You see entertainment. He stepped forward. The guards raised their weapons, but again, Valera stopped them. But here is the truth, Dahan said. Kill me, and 1,000 more will come. Kill them, and 10,000 more will come. Kill those, and 100,000 more will come. Humans do not stop. We do not surrender. We do not break. He was standing directly in front of her now, close enough to touch, close enough to see the small details of her alien face, close enough to see something change in her eyes. You can conquer our planets, he said. You can destroy our ships. You can burn our cities and kill our people. But you will never beat us. Because there will always be one more human willing to fight. One more human refusing to give up. One more human saying no to the impossible. He took a deep breath. That is what your champion did not understand. That is what you do not understand. That is what the entire galaxy does not understand about humanity. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Valera looked at him for a long moment. Her face showed nothing. Her eyes revealed nothing. She was 300 years old. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had met creatures from thousands of worlds, but she had never met anything like this human. Finally, she spoke. And if I let you go? She asked. You and your crew, free, unharmed, what then? Dahan blinked. He had not expected that question. Then we go home, he said carefully. We report what happened here. We tell others about the Korath Empire, about its power, its cruelty, its strength. And you will return with an army to destroy us? Valera asked that. Dahan thought about it. He thought about his crew. He thought about Earth. He thought about all the humans who would want revenge for what the Korath had done. No, he said finally. Valera raised an eyebrow. No? Humans are stubborn, Dahan said. But we are not stupid. You are too powerful to fight. At least, right now. We would lose, and many would die. He paused. But we would also tell others something else. We would tell them that the Empress of the Korath Empire let us go. That she showed mercy. That maybe, just maybe, there is more to the Korath than destruction and death. He looked at her with steady eyes. Or you can kill us and confirm everything the galaxy already believes about your empire. The choice is yours. Valera stood there, silent, thinking. The guards waited. The machines beeped. The air felt heavy with possibility. And then, slowly, the Empress smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was not a kind smile. It was something in between. Something almost like respect. "You are interesting, human," she said. "Very interesting indeed." She turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she stopped and looked back at him. "Get some rest, Sergeant Dohan," she said. "Tomorrow we will talk again." And then she was gone. Dohan stood alone in the healing room, wondering what he had just done, wondering what would happen next, wondering if he had just saved his crew or doomed them all. But somewhere deep inside, in a place that had kept him fighting when everything said he should stop, he felt something new. Hope. The human soldier stunned the alien Empress. No one expected this. Part 3. The battle. The champion charged. There was no warning, no ceremony, no signal to begin. The massive Karith simply lowered its head and ran at Dohan, like a freight train made of muscle and stone. The sand exploded under its feet. The ground shook with each step. The nobles above screamed with excitement. Dohan did not move. Not yet. He watched. He calculated. His mind worked faster than it ever had before. The champion was fast for its size, but it was running in a straight line. It expected the human to freeze with fear. It expected an easy kill. At the last possible moment, Dohan moved. He did not try to block. He did not try to fight force with force. That would be suicide. Instead, he threw himself to the side, rolling across the sand, feeling the wind as the champion rushed past him. The creature could not stop in time. It slammed into the arena wall with a sound like thunder. Cracks spread across the stone, but the champion was not hurt. It turned around slowly and looked at Dohan with something new in its yellow eyes. Confusion, and maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of respect. The human had dodged. The human had actually dodged. Dohan was already on his feet. His heart was pounding. His wounds were screaming. But he was alive. One attack survived. How many more could he survive? He needed a plan. He needed to think. The champion was stronger than him, faster than him, tougher than him. In a straight fight, Dohan would lose in seconds. So he could not fight straight. He had to fight smart. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest. They were not the toughest. But they had something that many species did not understand. They could adapt. They could learn. And they never, ever stopped trying. The champion attacked again. This time, it was more careful. It did not charge blindly. It threw a punch, a massive fist that could have broken through a wall. Dohan ducked. The fist went over his head. He felt the air move. If that had hit him, he would be dead. He moved in close, inside the champion's reach, and hit it in the side. His fist connected with the gray stone-like skin. Pain exploded through his hand. It was like punching a rock. He might have broken a finger, maybe two, but he saw something. When his fist hit, the champion made a small sound. Not pain, exactly, but something. There was a spot, right below the ribs, where the skin was slightly different. Softer, maybe. A weak point. Dohan filed that information away and moved back before the champion could grab him. The champion looked annoyed now. It had expected the human to die quickly. This was supposed to be entertainment, not work. It attacked again. Faster this time. A series of punches and grabs that forced Dohan to move constantly, dodging and weaving, never staying in one place. He was hit. A glancing blow to his shoulder that sent him spinning across the sand. He tasted blood in his mouth. His vision blurred for a moment. Get up, he told himself. Get up. He got up. Above him, he heard Hana scream his name. He heard Taiho shouting something. He could not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Do not give up. Keep fighting. The champion was walking toward him now, taking its time. It thought the fight was almost over. It thought the human was finished. It was wrong. Dohan had spent his whole life fighting. He had grown up poor in a small village where nothing came easy. He had joined the military because he wanted to protect people. He had trained for years, pushing his body to its limits and beyond. He knew pain. He knew exhaustion. He knew what it felt like to want to quit, and he knew how to keep going anyway. He stood straight. He raised his fist again. He looked at the champion with eyes that held no surrender. The champion stopped. For a moment, it seemed confused. Why was the human still standing? Why was he still fighting? Any other creature would have given up by now. Any other creature would have begged for mercy, but this human just stood there, bleeding and broken, ready for more. Something shifted in the arena. The nobles had stopped cheering. They were watching in silence, trying to understand what they were seeing. Empress Valera leaned forward on her throne. Her silver eyes were narrow, focused, interested. The champion attacked again. This time, Dohan did not just dodge. He had been watching, learning, adapting. He knew the champion's patterns now. He knew how it moved, how it thought, how it fought. He ducked under a punch and moved in close. He aimed for the weak spot, that small area below the ribs where the skin was softer. He hit it with everything he had. The champion made a sound. This time it was definitely pain. Dohan hit it again. And again. Each blow sent fire through his broken hand, but he did not stop. He could not stop. The champion swung wildly, trying to knock him away. But Dohan was too close, too fast. He was inside its guard, where its size became a disadvantage. He hit the weak spot again. The champion stumbled. The throne room exploded with noise. The nobles were screaming, some with excitement, some with disbelief. This was not supposed to happen. The human was not supposed to hurt the champion. The human was supposed to die, but Dohan was not dying. He was winning. The champion recovered and grabbed Dohan by the neck. It lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Its hand squeezed, cutting off his air. Dohan could not breathe. His vision started to go dark. He could feel his life slipping away, but he did not give up. With his last strength, he pulled his arm back and drove his elbow into the champion's eye. It was a desperate move, a human move, dirty, unexpected, effective. The champion screamed and dropped him. Dohan hit the ground hard. He gasped for air, his throat burning, his body screaming. But he forced himself to move. He could not rest. Not yet. The champion was holding its eye. Dark blood, the first blood anyone had ever seen from this creature, was running down its face. Thought it was hurt. It was really hurt. Dohan stood up one more time. The champion looked at him with its one good eye. And for the first time, there was something new in that look. Fear. The monster was afraid of the human. Dohan walked forward. Each step was agony. His body was failing. He had maybe one more attack left in him. One more chance. He had to make it count. The champion swung at him. Dohan dodged barely and got inside its guard one final time. He jumped, pushing off the ground with every bit of strength he had left, and drove his knee into the champion's throat. There was a crack. The champion's eyes went wide. It made a choking sound, a terrible gurgling noise. Its hands went to its throat, trying to breathe, but something was broken inside. It fell. The massive body hit the sand and did not move. The champion of the Karth Empire lay still, defeated by a creature half its size. The throne room was silent. Complete, absolute silence. Dohan stood over the fallen champion. He could barely stand. He could barely see. Blood was running down his face, his arms, his chest. He had broken bones, torn muscles, wounds that would take months to heal. But he was alive, and he had won. He looked up at the Empress. She was staring at him with an expression he could not read. Shock, maybe. Or something else. Then he turned to look at his crew. Hannah was crying. Taiho was laughing. Minho had his hands over his mouth, unable to believe what he had just seen. Dohan smiled at them. Then his legs gave out, and he collapsed into the sand. But even unconscious, even broken, there was a smile on his face. He had done it. He had won. For his crew. For humanity. For everyone who had ever been called weak. The human had beaten the monster. The human soldier stunned the alien Empress. No one expected this part one. The prisoner. The chains were heavy. They cut into Dohan's wrists and left marks on his skin. But he did not complain. He did not make a sound. He just walked forward, one step at a time, as the alien guards pushed him through the long hallway. The floor was made of black stone that shined like glass. The walls were tall, so tall that Dawn could not see where they ended. Strange lights floated in the air above him. They glowed purple and blue, moving slowly like sleeping fireflies. Everything here was beautiful. Everything here was also cold. Doan was a soldier. Sergeant Doan of the Earth Defense Force. He was 32 years old. He had short black hair, a strong jaw, and tired eyes. His uniform was torn and covered in blood. Some of it was his. Some of it was not. 3 days ago, his ship had been attacked. The Korath Empire had found them near the edge of human space. They were a small patrol ship with only 20 crew members. They never had a chance. The Korath warship was massive, like a mountain floating in space. It had broken their ship in minutes. Dohan remembered the fire. He remembered the screams. He remembered fighting until his gun had no more bullets. Then he fought with his hands. Then he fought with a broken piece of metal. And then, finally, they had knocked him down and put him in chains. Now he was here. Wherever here was. The guards around him were Korath soldiers. They were tall, almost 2.5 meters each. Their skin was gray and hard, like stone. Their eyes were yellow and had no pupils. They wore silver armor that covered their entire bodies. They carried long weapons that looked like spears, but Dohan knew they could fire energy beams. One of the guards spoke to another in their language. Dohan did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. They were laughing at him. They thought he was weak. They thought he was small. Dohan kept his face empty. He showed no fear. He showed no anger. He just walked. The hallway opened into a massive room. Dohan stopped breathing for a moment. The room was bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. It was like standing inside a mountain that had been carved hollow. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually floated near the top. Real clouds inside a room. Thousands of aliens filled the room. They sat on floating platforms that rose up along the walls like seats in a stadium. But these were not humans watching a game. These were Korath nobles, and they had come to watch him. They were different from the soldiers. Their skin had colors: purple, blue, green. They wore robes made of fabric that seemed to be alive, moving and changing patterns. Jewelry hung from their necks and arms, glowing with inner light. They whispered to each other as Dohan entered. He could feel their eyes on him. Thousands of yellow eyes, all looking at one small human dot at the far end of the room. There was a throne. It was made of something that looked like frozen lightning white and crackling with energy. And on that throne sat the Empress, Empress Valera of the Korath Empire. Dohan had heard stories about her. Every human soldier had. She had ruled the Korath for over 300 years. Her empire controlled more than 2,000 star systems. She had destroyed entire civilizations. Planets had burned because she had ordered it. And now Dohan was standing in front of her. She was tall, even for a Korath. Almost 3 meters. Her skin was deep purple, smooth like polished metal. Her eyes were not yellow like the others. They were silver, bright, and sharp like 2 moons. She wore a crown made of black crystal that seemed to absorb all the light around it. Her robe was white, simple but beautiful. She did not need decoration. Her presence was enough. She looked at Dawn, and he felt cold. Not scared, just cold. Like standing in winter wind, the guards pushed him forward. He stumbled, but did not fall. He would not fall. Not here. Not in front of all these aliens who thought humans were nothing. He stopped 10 meters from the throne. The guards stepped back. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The only sound was Dohan's own breathing. Then the Empress smiled. It was not a kind smile. "So," she said. Her voice was low and smooth, like a river of ice. She spoke in the common galactic language, the one that all species used for communication. "This is a human." Laughter spread through the room. The nobles found it amusing. A human. A creature from a small planet at the edge of nowhere. A species that had only discovered space travel 200 years ago. What was a human compared to the great Korath Empire? Dawn said nothing. He just looked at her. "I have heard stories about your kind," Valera continued. She leaned forward on her throne, studying him like he was an insect. "They say you are resilient. They say you do not give up easily. They say you fight even when you cannot win." She paused. Her silver eyes moved over his body, seeing the wounds, the torn uniform, the dried blood. "But I see only a small, broken creature," she said. "Weak, fragile, barely alive." More laughter from the nobles. Duhan still said nothing. His face remained empty. Valera's smile faded slightly. She had expected him to react, to beg, to cry, to show fear. That was what prisoners did. That was what the weak did when they stood before her. But this human just stood there, bleeding and bruised, looking at her with calm eyes. "Do you not speak?" she asked. There was a hint of curiosity in her voice now. "Do you not understand me?" "I understand you," Dawn said. His voice was rough from thirst and pain, but it was steady. It did not shake. The room went quiet. Nobody had expected the human to speak. Nobody had expected him to sound so unafraid. Valera leaned back in her throne. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled again, and this time there was something dangerous in that smile. "Good," she said. "Then you will understand what comes next." She raised one hand and made a small gesture. A door opened on the side of the room. Guards came through it, dragging more prisoners. Dohan's heart stopped. It was his crew. Hannah, the young pilot with the quick smile. Tayo, the engineer who could fix anything. Minho, the medic who had saved Dohan's life twice. And the others, 11 of them in total. All that remained of his crew. They were alive. Hurt, but alive. They saw him and their eyes went wide. "Sergeant," Hannah called out. Her voice was scared but hopeful. Like she believed he could save them. Dohan looked at his crew. Then he looked back at the Empress. And for the first time, something showed in his eyes. Not fear. Not anger. It was determination. Whatever game the Empress wanted to play, Dohan would play it. And he would not lose. Not while his people were still alive. Not while there was still breath in his body. He was a human soldier. And humans did not give up. The Empress saw that look in his eyes. And somewhere deep inside her, in a place she had almost forgotten existed, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. She felt interested. This human was different. This human might actually be worth watching. She smiled and leaned forward. "Let the games begin," she whispered. The human soldiers stunned the alien Empress. No one expected this part too. The challenge, the throne room, was silent. Every noble, every guard, every creature in that massive hall was watching. They watched the human prisoner. They watched their Empress. They waited to see what would happen next. Duhan stood in the center of the room. His chains felt heavier now. Not because they had changed, but because he could see his crew. 11 people who trusted him. 11 people who had followed him into battle. 11 people who were now prisoners because he had failed to protect them. Hannah was trying to stand tall, but he could see her legs shaking. She was only 23 years old. This was supposed to be her first real mission. She was supposed to go home after this. She was supposed to see her family again. Taeho had a cut above his eye that had not been treated. Blood had dried on his face, making him look older than his 40 years. He was looking around the room, probably already trying to find a way to escape. That was Taeho, always thinking, always planning. Minho was holding up Sunwoo, the communications officer, who seemed barely conscious. Minho's medic uniform was soaked with blood that was not his own. He had probably been trying to save people right until the moment they captured him. The others were scared. Dohan could see it in their eyes. But they were also looking at him, waiting for him to do something, waiting for him to save them. He wished he knew how. Empress Valera watched the human look at his crew. She saw how his eyes changed when he looked at them. She saw the way his hands tightened into fists, making his chains rattle softly. Interesting, she thought. He cares about them. Truly cares. This was rare. In her 300 years of rule, she had learned that most creatures cared only about themselves. When facing death, they would betray anyone to survive. Parents abandoned children. Friends became enemies. Love turned to hate in the blink of an eye. But this human looked at his crew like they were his family, like their lives mattered more than his own. How amusing. How foolish. How interesting. She stood from her throne. The movement was slow and graceful, like water flowing upward. The nobles immediately fell silent. When the Empress stood, you did not speak. You did not move. You barely breathed. Valera walked down the steps from her throne. Her white robe trailed behind her, moving like it had a life of its own. She stopped a few meters from Don and looked down at him. She was almost a full meter taller than him. From this close, he could see details he had missed before. Small scales on her skin that caught the light. Thin lines around her silver eyes that might have been age or might have been something else. The way her crown seemed to pulse with dark energy. You are the leader of these humans, she said. It was not a question. I am, Dahon replied. Then you are responsible for them. I am, Valera nodded slowly. Good. Then what happens to them will be your choice. Don's jaw tightened. He did not like where this was going. The Empress turned and walked back toward her throne, but she did not sit. She stood beside it, facing the room, facing the thousands of watching nobles. Today, I offer entertainment to my loyal subjects, she announced. Her voice filled the massive room easily, as if the walls themselves were helping carry her words. Today, I offer blood. The nobles cheered. The sound was like thunder. They stamped their feet, they clapped their hands, they made sounds with their mouths that were not quite human but expressed the same thing. Excitement, hunger, joy. They wanted to see death. They wanted to see suffering. And Valera was going to give it to them. She raised her hand and the cheering stopped instantly. This human is the leader of the prisoners we captured, she continued. He has shown courage. He has shown defiance. Some might even say he has shown strength. She paused, letting the words sink in. But we all know what humans really are. Weak, soft, fragile little creatures from a fragile little world. Laughter and agreement from the nobles. So I will give him a choice, Valera said. She turned to look at Dawn, and there was something cold and cruel in her silver eyes. A choice that will show everyone the truth about humanity. She pointed to his crew. The guards behind them stepped forward, raising their weapons. Choice 1, the Empress said. You refuse to play my game. Your crew dies. All of them. Right now, quickly, painlessly. She tilted her head slightly. While mostly painlessly, Dahan's blood turned cold. Choice 2, Valera continued. You agree to fight. You will enter the arena and face my champion. If you win, and you will not, you and your crew go free. If you lose, you die, but your crew lives. They become slaves, but they live. The throne room was completely silent. Every eye was on Duhan Dot. It was not really a choice. He knew that. The Empress knew that. Everyone in the room knew that. If he refused, his crew died. If he accepted, only he died. And his crew would become slaves, but they would be alive. Where there was life, there was hope. But there was another part to this. A part that the Empress had probably not considered. If he fought, he might win. He probably would not. The Korath champion was probably some massive warrior who had never lost a fight. Dahan was injured, tired, and had no weapons. His chances were almost zero, but almost zero was not zero, 1%. One chance in 100. One small hope. For his crew, he would take those odds. I accept, he said. Valera smiled. She had expected this. The human would choose to fight. They always chose to fight. It was in their nature. Like animals who could not accept their fate. How brave, she said, her voice dripping with fake admiration. How foolish. How very, very human. She raised her hand again, and a portion of the floor in the center of the room began to sink. It dropped down 10 meters, 20 meters, until it formed a pit. An arena. The walls of the arena were smooth stone, impossible to climb. The floor was covered with sand that had been stained dark in many places. Dark with old blood. Doan was pushed forward. He fell into the arena, landing hard on the sand. Pain shot through his body, but he forced himself to stand. He would not show weakness. Not now. Above him, the nobles leaned forward in their floating seats. They wanted to see everything. They did not want to miss a moment of the human's death. The Dohan looked around the arena. There were no weapons, no shields, no tools of any kind. He would have to fight with his bare hands. He took a deep breath and tried to remember his training. Hand-to-hand combat, close quarters fighting, things he had learned years ago and had hoped he would never need. On the other side of the arena, a gate opened. Something came out. It was a Korath, but not like the guards or the nobles. This one was different, bigger, stronger, more terrifying. It was almost 3 meters tall and almost as wide. Its gray skin was covered with scars from countless battles. Its arms were thick like tree trunks, and its hands were the size of Dahan's entire torso. It wore no armor, only simple cloth around its waist. It did not need armor. Its body was its armor. This was the champion. The creature looked at Dawn and made a sound that might have been laughter. It was like rocks grinding together. It stepped forward, each footstep shaking the sand beneath them. Above, Empress Valera watched with hungry eyes. She expected this to be quick. She expected the human to die within minutes. She expected blood and screaming and the sweet taste of victory. Doan looked at the monster walking toward him. He looked at his own hands, small, human, fragile. Then he looked up at his crew, who were watching from above. Hannah had tears on her face. Taiho was gripping the railing so hard, his knuckles were white. Minho was whispering something, maybe a prayer. Dawan smiled at them. It was a small smile. A tired smile. But it was real. Then he turned to face the champion and raised his fists. The galaxy thought humans were weak. The galaxy thought humans were prey. Today, Dahan would show them how wrong they were.